Okay, so with this video here, I am going to go over a little bit what was going on with this project. This project was actually pretty big, even though it was only a 2-day project. The property was probably around 35 acres and was a variety of different kinds of tasks that we could perform. Both hand cutting, Mike was on the ground hand cutting, and I was running the skid with the Adara Typhoon 72-inch. Now, in all fairness, I have to always put a disclaimer out there. Adara does not sell this unit, this Typhoon, as a tree mulcher, and I use it that way. I've been super happy with it. I have had a couple of problems over the years with it, but nothing major. I plan to continue to use it this way, and it's for some of the unique features it allows me in this area. So let's talk about what this is, and then we'll talk, or what I'm doing and what the job scope is, and then I can talk about some of those features as well. So originally, if you're looking at the video right now, you'll see that this is a downhill slope. It goes up another slope. This is a big gulch in the middle of his property, and just past the horizon in front of the machine currently, there is a irrigation ditch that runs across the flat top of the property across from where I'm looking right now. And it was full of Russian olive. About 10 years ago, he had a what people around here call a hydro axe, but really it was just a big front loader, heister with a masticator, so like a tiger cat or one of those units out there, and then a skid with a drum masticator. And they had done a bunch of work to get these full-grown Russian olives eradicated off the property and managed and mitigated. Now, about 10 years later, we've had a couple of seasons of really good snowfall and rain and moisture, and they started to really crop up. While I was out there bidding this job, I noticed this area here where two things had occurred: weather and time and whatever had, caused these trees to just decay, fall down, and some of them had also been removed in part by the drum masticators of the past that had been working in there about 10 years ago. And it's kind of rocky, it's kind of steep. It's whatever, and I guess they just felt it wasn't worth the hassle, maybe for the time that they had bid or whatnot. They left a bunch of this stuff, and to me, it looked very clustered. I'm sure branches had just fallen on top of it, things like that. It was not very appealing, and on top of that, our main focus and number one priority of this project was the Russian olive. Well, when you have the clusters of tree branches and logs like this, it creates shaded areas where wind and sunlight don't get to as readily, and when it snows or it rains, those areas maintain some moisture, and any of the seeds that land there in whatever form, or if there's any root shoots from neighboring Russian olive, they can easily germinate and become saplings. And so I wanted to clean this place up a little bit more within what was reasonable for the machine and its attachment, and get that stuff cleared out, which is what I was doing there. Now, a lot of that wood was 16 inches in diameter, and some of it was punky rotten, but a lot of it was just stone hard, dead cottonwood. And the Typhoon really does an awesome job. You do have to go over it more times to get it to like a traditional drum masticator look. But if you're doing rough blowout, you can get it into a much more manageable splintered look. And as you can see, I mean, it just cuts straight through all this cottonwood and stuff that's just been dead and as hard as a rock. Can't really hear it over me talking. Plus, this is, I think, at 8 times the speed. So you can't really distinguish just how hard that wood is. But if you hear it at normal speed, that it sounds like it's hitting rock. And the benefit that I found to the Typhoon for using it in this kind of application is that this area has a ton of exposed sandstone rock and a little bit of granite, some quartz, different things like that. And while I don't want to like beat up the blades and stuff by just ramming it into exposed rock, I can lower it into areas that have some rock, and if I hit rock, it's not the end of the world. It can slightly damage the edge of the blades, but the blades are pretty blunt anyway. They're very much like a the concept is like a brush hog would be. However, it's a very different system. The system is a two blade system. It has a 1 inch arm, 1 inch thick AR 400 arm that is almost the total width. The blades themselves are only 15 inches in length, and I think they're about 5 3/4 in width, and they're about 5/8 thick. And I can, if I'm doing this kind of work right here in rocky areas or in super sandy areas, I can run these on super dense wood like pinyon, cottonwood, whatever, for about 20 days before I have to change the blades. Now, a set of blades with the new bolts and everything that you need, because these are sling blades, so there's a special bolt that they use. It lets the blade fling around, and I'll give you guys some more detail about that, which is why it can hit like a hard surface like rock and whatever and deflect instead of breaking as easily. And I have broken blades, so it's not impossible to do that, but it doesn't happen as frequently. But they're about $400 a set to be shipped. And so this portion here is just me going through and mulching up all this dead cottonwood, where here in a little bit you'll actually see me get into these crevice areas and get these Russian olive. If you look at just the top of the screen in front of the Typhoon, that's all Russian olive growing up in there, and that's what I'm trying to kind of get to. And it just makes it, I'm cleaning up so Russian olive will be less likely to come back in this area. And in the future, to get that bigger wood out, which he's talking about doing, I would actually probably just come in and start using a square cut chain or a carbide chain, depending on how dirty the logs are, cut it all up and send it through my 16-inch shipper, well, it's 15 3/4, it's the BC 1500. So this was part of the project, and this was actually added on later because we moved through the Russian olive eradication so quickly that he realized, hey, I'm getting a really good deal for my money, and he wanted us to do this. Now, something to keep in mind is that I did bid this job with the concept that I was going to be using the machines for the toughest work, which is mulching up these really big dead trees. And I figured if I never get to it, it's less wear and tear on the equipment, so I'm getting a better deal. But if we do get to it, I have it underpriced and I don't have to go back and change the price, and he was happy either way. So in 2 days, we got probably, let's see, that was probably, man, I don't know, 5 acres of Russian olive mulched. All of this that you're seeing here mulched, and then he had a couple of fields that were probably around 3 acres or 4 acres of willow that were saplings that were coming up, and cottonwood saplings that were coming up that we also did. And those will be mulched in a different video. The Russian olive will also be shown in a different video as a general rule. So you can see Russian olive right there in front of me. And I get in there and get that stuff here right now. And that's the whole point of all of this, is trying to just clear out space and prevent this stuff from coming back as easily. They did come back and spray as well to not only mow it down, but also try to kill the roots, which this stuff is so intense and hard. It's very difficult. You can see though that it's just mulching away this wood, and if I go over it 2 or 3 times real quick like I'm doing here, those big splinters just turn into chips, and they're pretty close to what a drum mulcher does. My clients have actually been way happier with this unit than they have some of the masticators that have come in for both look and for regrowth reasons. So you have options, and it's pretty good.